The attic door creaked before I could even reach it. Snow pressed against the windows outside, muting the world in a soft, suffocating quiet. I froze, hand on the cold brass knob, listening. Something shifted above me, a faint rustle like a cloth brushing against the floorboards. The air smelled of dust and pine, but beneath it lingered something older, metallic, almost like iron left to rot. My heart thudded. I knew I shouldn't have come up here. The house felt different tonight, hollow in ways it had never been, shadows stretching too long across the walls. A box, small and unremarkable, sat in the corner, coated in decades of dust. The latch was loose, swinging slightly, though I hadn't touched it. My fingers hovered over it when a whisper, so soft it could have been the wind, threaded through the room. "You shouldn't be here." I jerked back. My breath hitched. The snow outside had fallen silent. Then a thud, deep and hollow, came from below. The basement. My stomach sank. I wanted to run, but my feet carried me forward anyway. Each step toward the box felt heavier, the air thicker. My fingers closed around the latch, and I felt it, movement from inside. Something small, or impossibly large. I couldn't tell. A low creak from the basement stairs followed by another whisper. Closer, urgent. "It knows." I froze. And in that frozen heartbeat, the house felt alive, waiting, watching. The attic box trembled slightly under my fingers as I pried it open. Inside were brittle papers, yellowed photographs, and small wooden toys. Some cracked, some almost pristine despite their age. One photograph caught my eye, a group of children, all smiles, standing in front of a tree much like the one still clinging to the living room corner. But something about it was wrong. Their eyes seemed too sharp, too knowing, and the shadows behind them were far darker than they should have been. I leaned closer, squinting at the faded ink on a folded letter. The handwriting was spidery, hurried. "Do not touch what sleeps below. It listens." My breath caught. A draft rattled the attic window, carrying with it a faint smell of damp earth and decay. I shivered, pulling my sweater tighter around me, and then I heard it, a scraping sound from the basement. Just below me. Probably just the pipes, I muttered to myself, though my voice sounded thin in the hollow space. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every shadow seemed to twitch when I blinked, every corner threatening something unseen. The Christmas lights downstairs flickered as if in warning, casting weak orange glows over the polished wooden floor. My mother's voice, cheerful and distant, echoed from the kitchen, unaware of the tension coiling the house tighter than the tinsel around the banister. I descended the narrow attic stairs slowly, the boards groaning under my weight. Each step carried a rhythm like a heartbeat, and I imagined it syncing with something in the darkness below. At the foot of the stairs, the hallway stretched longer than it had any other day. The air was colder here, heavier, as though the house had exhaled and decided I shouldn't be here. A faint sound came again from the basement. A thump like something landing heavily on the concrete floor. My pulse jumped. I considered turning back, telling myself it was just an old house settling. But curiosity edged out reason. I reached the basement door, its paint peeling and splintering, and paused. The knob was cold, almost icy, and I hesitated, hand trembling. The faint smell of damp soil and something metallic drifted upward. A whisper grazed my ear, soft and deliberate. "Why are you here?" I jumped back, stumbling into the hallway wall. My heart pounded as I forced my voice out, shakier than I expected. "Hello? Anyone there?" Silence. Then a sound that made my stomach tighten, a scraping from below, slow and deliberate, like fingernails against wood. My mind flashed to the letters in the attic, to the warning scribbled so frantically. "It listens." I glanced toward the living room. The tree lights blinked once, twice, and then stuttered out completely. The house was still. Only the faint hum of the refrigerator broke the silence, though even that seemed hollow, as if muffled by unseen hands. I felt a pull toward the basement, irresistible and maddening. My hand went to the knob again, this time gripping it with a resolve I didn't feel. The door creaked open. Darkness greeted me like an old friend. The first step down felt like crossing a threshold into another world, colder, heavier, watching. The stairs groaned beneath me, but there was another sound too, something moving just out of sight, shifting in the shadows. My breath fogged in the air, uneven, quick. The smell of dampness thickened, with an undertone of iron that made my stomach churn. Halfway down, I froze. Something small brushed against my leg. A toy? A piece of cloth? My mind raced, trying to rationalize, but rationalization felt useless here. There was awareness in this basement, intelligence, a presence, and it knew I had come. I reached the concrete floor. My feet echoed softly, but every sound seemed to be swallowed before it reached the far corners. The basement felt endless, larger than the house itself, as though the walls stretched and twisted in subtle ways. A shadow flitted across the far end, just beyond the reach of the dim light I carried. "Who's there?" My voice cracked, fragile. A low creak in response. Then, an unmistakable whisper, deliberate and cold. "You can't leave." Panic clawed up my spine. The letters, the photographs, the warnings, they weren't just stories. They were truth. Something lived here. Something had been waiting. And now it had noticed me. I wanted to turn back, flee up the stairs, escape the oppressive darkness. But something compelled me forward. Curiosity, terror, a mixture I couldn't separate. Each step toward the shadow felt heavier, more deliberate, and the air seemed to hum around me. In the far corner, a pile of boxes shifted slightly. One toppled over, spilling its contents. Old ornaments, cracked dolls, photographs smeared with dust and age. And at the very bottom, a small wooden figure stared back at me. Its eyes, tiny, black and empty, seemed alive. A soft giggle, almost childlike, echoed from somewhere above, then below. I swallowed hard, every instinct screaming to run. But the staircase behind me was just a line of light, fading into darkness, and the basement had already begun to close in around me. And then I saw it, or glimpsed it, at the edge of the shadows. Something tall, impossibly thin, almost human, yet wrong. It moved with the patience of something that had waited decades. My chest tightened. Every rational thought evaporated. I realized, with a chill that ran through my bones, that this was only the beginning. The basement seemed to breathe around me. Shadows pooled in corners, stretching unnaturally, and every small sound, a drip of water, the scuff of my foot, echoed like a threat. The wooden figure I'd seen in the corner remained staring, its empty eyes a dark mirror to my own rising panic. I picked it up, feeling the rough edges bite into my fingers. Something about it was wrong. The smell of damp and decay was stronger now, almost metallic, clinging to my skin. As I traced the carvings on the figure, faint letters emerged in the grain. "Remember us." My mind recoiled. Who's there? My voice sounded foolish, swallowed by the oppressive air. Only silence answered. I moved deeper into the basement, past stacks of old boxes and rusted tools. Each step felt heavier, like the floor itself resisted my passage. Then, faintly, I heard it. A voice low and trembling as though it had been buried for decades. "You shouldn't have come." I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The words were thin, almost a whisper, but they carried authority, menace. I stumbled back toward the stairs, gripping the railing. My mind raced. The letters, the photograph, the warning in the attic. They all spoke of something ancient, something that had been waiting in this house, perhaps in the very foundation. The stories I'd heard as a child about my family's past came back in fragments. Whispers of disappearances, of people who had vanished during Christmas, of rooms sealed off with warnings. I'd laughed it off then. Now, every memory seemed like a key unlocking the darkness around me. I needed to know. I needed to understand. I descended again, careful not to breathe too loudly. The shadows seemed to move with me, curling around my legs, climbing the walls. At the far end of the basement, a faint light glimmered. It was not electricity. It pulsed softly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. Drawn to it, I found an old chest, blackened with age, its surface etched with symbols I couldn't recognize. The same symbols were carved faintly into the attic floorboards, hidden beneath dust. As I reached for the chest, a cold wind rushed past me, snuffing the tiny glow. My hand hovered. The air grew thick, heavy with anticipation, and I could feel the presence of something watching, waiting for me to cross the line. Please don't. The voice was closer now, almost in my ear, though I saw no one. My fingers shook as they grazed the chest. I lifted the lid. Inside were letters, journals, and photographs, older than any in the attic, yellowed with age and brittle to the touch. The first journal was small, leather-bound, with faint stains along its edges. I opened it. The handwriting was familiar. My great-grandfather's. The words were hurried, frantic. It hides beneath the floorboards. It waits for the smell of joy, the warmth of family. It remembers. It knows. We tried to bind it, but nothing lasts. Do not awaken what slumbers below. I swallowed hard. The room seemed to grow colder, the shadows denser. Something shifted behind me. I spun around, heart hammering, but there was nothing. Just the pile of boxes, still and silent. I couldn't leave now. I had to see it, understand it. From somewhere in the house, a whisper carried, "Remember." I recoiled, then pressed on, moving past the chest. The basement walls were lined with shelves, all covered in dust, old toys, and forgotten Christmas ornaments. Each item seemed wrong. Too old, too pristine, or subtly twisted, like smiles frozen into grimaces. A porcelain doll toppled over without a sound, its painted eyes glinting under my flashlight. The beam flickered, then steadied. I wasn't alone. I remembered the neighbor's warnings from childhood. The old woman who had lived across the street. She had leaned across the fence one Christmas Eve, her breath misting in the cold air, whispering, "Your family cursed. Don't let the children play in the attic or the basement. It watches, it waits. It remembers." I had thought it superstition then. Now, standing in the cold basement, every fiber of my being screamed that she had known the truth. A noise drew my attention. Faint scratching, low and deliberate, coming from beneath the floorboards. I knelt, pressing my ear to the cold wood. The sound was rhythmic, purposeful, like claws tapping out a warning. I pulled back, shaking. Something was alive below me, something that had waited decades for me to descend. I picked up another photograph from the chest, and my stomach dropped. The picture showed my great-grandfather as a young man, smiling at the camera in the living room, but behind him the shadows were wrong. A tall, thin figure loomed in the corner, impossibly still, impossibly black. My breath caught. It wasn't a trick of the light. The shape moved slightly as I watched, almost imperceptibly. I slammed the photo down. My pulse raced, and I could hear whispers now, multiple voices, fragmented, overlapping. It waits. It knows. You cannot leave. I staggered back, heart hammering, realizing the basement itself seemed to shift. The stairs I had descended seemed farther, longer than before. The walls pulsed subtly, alive, breathing. Something was not just beneath the house. It was the house, or perhaps older, something that had grown with it, hidden in its foundations and floors. A faint scratching on the wall drew my gaze. An outline appeared, shifting, like someone pressed against the plaster from the other side. I froze. My mind screamed that this was impossible, that I was imagining it, yet everything, the letters, the photographs, the whispers, told me I wasn't. I heard the scraping again, closer, deliberate. It was coming from behind me. I turned slowly. Nothing. But the air was colder there, a pressure that made my chest tighten. I could feel the house's intent, waiting, patient. I ran my hands over a nearby shelf, searching for anything familiar, anything to anchor me. Old toys, glass figurines, boxes of letters, all seemed ordinary yet tainted. Shadows moved unnaturally, twisting along the walls, pooling into shapes that mimicked human forms. The basement was alive, mocking me, testing me. Then a whisper, close, sharp. "Look at me." I spun. At the far end of the basement, a shadow detached itself from the wall. Too tall, too thin, impossibly still. Its face, if it could be called that, was featureless, yet somehow aware. It radiated patience and hunger, a presence older than the house, waiting for generations to falter. I stumbled back, tripping over the wooden figure I had brought with me. It rolled across the floor, eyes facing upward, as if it observed my terror. I realized with a bone-deep chill that this entity, whatever it was, fed on attention, on curiosity. My arrival had awoken something that had slumbered for decades. And the warnings, the letters, the whispers, the photographs were not guidance, but chains, binding me into the house's orbit. A voice whispered again, overlapping with the first. You cannot leave. You never leave. The basement felt infinite now. Every step I took seemed to echo into eternity. The stairs behind me stretched farther, twisted impossibly. Light flickered from nowhere, casting shadows that moved independently of the objects around them. My sanity teetered. I couldn't distinguish the real from the imagined. I realized I wasn't just afraid, I was trapped. The house, the attic, the basement, the shadows, they were all one entity now. Observing, testing, shaping me. And it had been waiting for me this Christmas. The culmination of decades of hunger. I wanted to flee. But every instinct told me the same thing. I was already too deep, too far gone. And it would not let me leave. Not without paying a toll I was unprepared to imagine. The basement had become a labyrinth. Every corner I turned twisted unnaturally, stretching longer, darker than before. The walls seemed to breathe, pulsing subtly as if alive, and the shadows pooled and stretched with an intelligence I couldn't comprehend. The figure, the tall, thin presence, moved just beyond the reach of my flashlight, patient, deliberate. I stumbled over the wooden figure again, its empty eyes facing upward like a silent accusation. My hand shook violently as I fumbled to pick it up, and I realized the air itself had weight, pressing down, curling around my chest, making every breath a labor. The house was no longer a house. It was an organism watching, feeding, reshaping itself around me. From somewhere deep in the walls came the scraping, relentless, like fingernails against wood. Then whispers, sharp, overlapping. You cannot leave. You cannot leave. You cannot. I pressed my back against a shelf, trying to gather some sense of reality, but the room around me flickered in impossible ways. The ceiling stretched higher, the stairs receded into darkness, and the shadows at the edges of the basement began to solidify. Faces appeared within them. My ancestors, their eyes hollow, twisted in silent screams, mouths moving without sound. They pointed at me, gesturing warnings I couldn't comprehend. I turned toward the far corner where the entity had been, and it was closer now, impossibly close. Too thin, too tall, its movements inhumanly smooth. Its face was featureless, yet I could feel its awareness, as if it could see every thought, every fear, every memory. Why are you here? My voice cracked, a whisper that barely escaped my lips. The response was immediate, chilling, a voice that seemed to echo in my skull. Because you remembered. The shadows writhed, stretching across the floor like black rivers, and I felt them reach for me, tendrils of cold that made my skin crawl. The attic above me groaned, and I knew, horrifyingly, that the house itself was alive, each floor connected to the next, each shadow a conduit, each whisper a lure. I tried to run. My feet pounded against the concrete floor, but the distance seemed to elongate with every step. The wooden stairs I had descended moments ago now seemed miles away. The light of the living room flickered faintly above, unreachable. My flashlight slipped from my grasp and clattered to the floor, the beam slicing across the room, illuminating the entity for a fleeting second. Impossibly tall, impossibly black, a silhouette that consumed all light. It shifted, faster than humanly possible, and I felt a cold press against my back. I stumbled, crashing into a pile of boxes. The photographs scattered, old images of smiling children, family gatherings, letters with frantic warnings. But now the figures in the photographs moved subtly, turning their heads, following me with unseen eyes. A whisper grazed my ear, sharper this time. Stay with us. I tried to scream, but my voice refused. The walls themselves seemed to lean in, the shadows solidifying into forms. Hands, limbs, faces. Pressing closer, testing me, suffocating me. I clawed at the floor, desperate, but the concrete felt infinite. The ceiling warped, stretching impossibly high, while the basement grew wider in ways I knew should have been impossible. The house had become a trap, a predator, and I was its prey. Suddenly, a door I hadn't noticed before slammed open at the far end. Light spilled briefly, revealing the entity fully. Its form was blacker than shadow, a tall silhouette with impossible angles, yet humanoid. It radiated patience, hunger, and an inevitability that made my chest tighten with terror. I froze, unable to look away, unable to flee. "You cannot leave," it whispered again. This time, I understood. Every warning, every letter, every photograph had been a lure. The house had been waiting for me this Christmas, and I had followed its trail willingly. I stumbled backward, tripping over the scattered toys and photographs. My mind reeled. Time seemed broken. Clocks ticked in reverse. Shadows moved against the natural flow of light. I saw glimpses of past Christmases. My childhood, my ancestors, moments that had never been mine but were stitched into the house's memory. Then came the laughter. Low at first, childlike, innocent, but twisted, dark and knowing. It echoed from every corner simultaneously. I clutched my head, trying to shut it out, but the sound penetrated bone and mind alike. A faint glow appeared in the distance. The attic above, or was it below? The boundaries of the house were meaningless now. I crawled toward it, driven by instinct, desperation. The entity followed silently, moving impossibly fast, always at the edge of perception. I reached the glow. An open chest, ancient, lined with yellowed velvet. Inside, more letters, journals, photographs, but also a mirror. I stared into it. For a second I saw myself. Then something shifted. My reflection grinned, a grin that wasn't mine, that I had never worn. My reflection moved independently, whispering, "Welcome home." I screamed, though the sound was swallowed by the house. The entity was upon me in an instant, its shadow merging with my reflection. My mind fractured. Memories, thoughts, fears, and hallucinations collided. I saw my family in the attic, in the basement, in the walls. Every generation trapped, consumed, transformed by this presence. The entity had always been patient, feeding across decades, and now it had me. I tried to resist, clawing at the mirror, the floor, the walls. The house convulsed with my struggle. The wooden figure rolled across the floor, its empty eyes now glowing faintly. Every shadow, every object, seemed to pulse with life. I realized the entity didn't just consume bodies. It consumed reality, bending it around its prey. I heard my own voice, far away. "Help someone." But it was my own echo, twisted, mocking. The laughter rose, crescendoing, a chorus of every trapped soul the house had claimed. My mind screamed for release, but it was futile. The entity touched me, or I touched it, and the world became a blur of shadows, whispers, and impossible geometry. I felt my thoughts splintering. Memories of childhood, of Christmases past, of my ancestors' warnings. They all converged into a single, undeniable truth. I had entered willingly, but I could never leave. The attic and basement merged in my perception. Stairs became walls, walls became shadows, shadows became faces. Every instinct screamed flight, but there was nowhere to go. The entity surrounded me, consumed me, integrated me. I felt the cold press of its presence inside my mind, a patient hunger that had waited decades, and now it had me. "You are ours," it whispered. "Always ours." The laughter, the whispers, the shadows, all converged. I tried to hold on to myself, to resist, but the house's reality was absolute. My body collapsed. My mind fractured. I became both observer and observed, part of the shadows, part of the whispering, part of the house. The last thing I remember before the darkness consumed everything was a faint, childlike giggle, the same I had heard before in the attic, and now echoing through every corner of the basement, the attic, the walls, the house itself. And then, silence. Snow fell softly outside, muffling the world. The house, silent now, seemed to exhale a long, patient sigh, as though satisfied that its work was complete. Inside, the living room remained decorated for Christmas, the tree lights flickering weakly, casting pale shadows across the polished floor. But the air was heavy, unmoving, and the warmth of life that should have filled the home was gone. I, or what remained of me, sat on the floor near the fireplace, a wooden figure balanced beside my hand. Its empty eyes glimmered faintly in the dim light, reflecting something I no longer recognized. I tried to move, to speak, but my body felt sluggish, distant, as though a part of me had never returned from the basement, from the darkness that had consumed me. From somewhere far above, the attic door creaked. Dust motes danced in the weak sunlight that fell through the frosted window panes. And in that light, I glimpsed the photographs I had scattered in panic weeks ago. Or had it been years? The images were the same, but subtly altered. Faces twisted in silent screams, shadows moved independently, and something unseen lurked just beyond the edge of vision. A faint whisper reached me, soft and almost tender, yet threaded with menace. "Do not forget." I shivered, realizing the entity's presence lingered, woven into the house itself. It had claimed me, shaped me, yet it did not fully consume me. At least, not yet. I was aware, a hollow observer trapped inside its infinite patience. Memories of my childhood, of letters, of warnings long ignored, replayed endlessly, fragments echoing in a loop. Every Christmas past, every happy moment in this house, had been a lure, a preparation. And now the house was quiet, waiting for the next cycle. I tested my voice. A rasp emerged, barely human. Who's there? Only silence. And then the faint, deliberate creak of basement stairs. Someone or something was moving below. My mind raced. Was it another victim, or had the entity taken another form to entice me? I could no longer trust my senses. Time no longer flowed normally. Moments stretched, contracted, and overlapped. The house had absorbed the basement, the attic, my consciousness, and yet it lingered in fragments of reality, teasing me with what I thought I knew. I attempted to leave, to flee, but the doors resisted. I reached for the living room doorknob, cold, solid, unyielding. The windows outside, though snow-covered, reflected a scene that wasn't right. My own reflection stared back, subtly wrong, a crooked grin, empty eyes, a whisper of movement behind the glass. I recoiled. I was alone, yet not alone. A sudden clatter came from the attic above. Dust fell from the ceiling as though the house itself was breathing, stretching its limbs in response to my attempted escape. I realized I had become part of it, tethered by curiosity, by fear, by the choices I had made. The entity had not merely consumed me. It had rewritten the rules of reality within these walls. I sank to the floor, shivering, grasping the wooden figure. Its empty eyes stared at me, and I felt a subtle warmth, almost comforting, though I knew it was a lie. The house hummed faintly, a vibration that resonated through my bones, reminding me of the basement, the attic, the figure, the shadows, all woven together in an intricate, endless web of inevitability. I heard a voice, distant and faintly human, drifting from the hall. "Do not disturb." The words were a warning, perhaps to the living outside, perhaps to myself. The sense of inevitability was overwhelming. This house, this entity, the shadows, they would wait patiently, year after year, Christmas after Christmas, drawing in those foolish enough to enter its orbit. And now I was part of its memory, another whisper in its walls, another shadow at the corner of its rooms. Time passed, or perhaps it did not. The house did not change. Dust settled on the ornaments, snow accumulated outside, and the wooden figure remained perfectly still beside me. I tried to rise again, but the effort was exhausting, almost impossible. My mind felt dulled, stretched thin between fear, memory, and something darker. An awareness that this was permanent. I realized, with a bone-deep chill, that the entity did not merely feed on life. It fed on awareness, on memory, on the fragility of curiosity. It existed beyond the physical, in the spaces between shadows and the pauses between thoughts. And now, it had shaped me into part of its ongoing cycle, a sentinel, a cautionary whisper for the next curious soul. From the far corner I sensed movement. A toy rolled slowly across the floor, its painted grin slightly wider than I remembered. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, gathering along the edges of the walls, pooling toward the center of the room as though converging on some unseen axis. A soft giggle echoed faintly, childlike but warped, the sound reverberating in my skull. My body shivered, but I could not flee. I could only watch and remember. I tried to reach for the photographs scattered across the floor, hoping to piece together some anchor to reality, some fragment of the house as it had been before the darkness consumed it. But each photograph shifted under my gaze. Smiles too wide, eyes too sharp, shadows curling in ways that made my stomach knot. I realized then that the house itself had rewritten the past, bending memory and perception to its will. I was trapped in its story, and the story was eternal. A single ornament, a small glass bauble, fell from the tree with a soft tink, rolling to rest against the figure. The sound echoed in the empty house, sharp and deliberate. I flinched, and in that moment I understood. The entity was patient, deliberate, eternal. It did not rush, it did not tire, it did not forget. And neither could I. The whispers returned, soft, sibilant, indistinguishable, yet clear in their intent. Remember. Stay, never leave. I closed my eyes. The fear remained, but a strange clarity emerged. I was part of it now, part of the house, part of the shadows, part of the whispers. Escape was a memory, distant and unreachable. The attic above and the basement below were one, the house itself a single organism with infinite patience. I was no longer a visitor. I was an inhabitant, bound to its rhythm, its will, its eternal Christmas. I felt a presence at my shoulder, impossibly light, impossibly cold. I dared not turn. A whisper brushed past my ear. Next year, someone else will come. I shivered. I knew it was true. The snow outside fell in silence, muffling the world, hiding the house from those who might pass by. And within, I remained, a silent witness, a hollowed observer, my mind tethered to the entity that had claimed me. The house would wait, and I would wait with it. The wooden figure beside me shifted slightly. Its empty eyes now glimmered faintly, reflecting the faint light that came through the frost-covered windows. I understood then that it was not a toy. It was a sentinel, a reminder, a vessel of awareness. I could feel the entity in it, a presence patient, deliberate, eternal. Time passed. Perhaps hours, perhaps decades. Outside, Christmas lights flickered weakly in neighboring houses, oblivious to the quiet horror dwelling nearby. Inside, the house remained unchanged, alive in its patient, deliberate way. I moved minimally, too aware of the consequences, too aware of the entity's reach. I was trapped, yet I remembered everything. The attic, the basement, the shadows, the whispers, the warnings, the laughter, the letters, the photographs. I realized I could do nothing. Not now. Not ever. The house had won. And yet, a small, undeniable part of me remained. The part that remembered, that knew what had come before, that had seen the entity's hunger, its patience, its eternal vigilance. That part would remain, watching, waiting, until the next curious soul dared to enter, dared to listen to the whispers, dared to disturb the house's quiet patience. I did not move. I did not speak. I only watched. The shadows pooled, the snow fell outside, the Christmas lights flickered weakly, and the whispers continued. Always waiting. Always patient. Always here. And in the silence between the whispers, I knew one thing with unshakable certainty. The horror of this house would never end.